Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Tom. Today, for my 20th video, I'm going to do something special. I'm going to count down 20 favorite albums from one of my favorite years in music, 1967. It wasn't easy. I could have easily picked 40, but I've whittled it down to 20. And it was pretty hard to rank these albums, let's face it. I mean, there's so many great albums from that year that are equally as good as the next. But people love ranking. I'm going to rank. So, cheers. So I'm not going to include two albums by one band. I'm just going to include one album per band, which is my favorite of that particular band. There were several bands that year that released 2-3 albums, so I'm just going to pick one. So without further ado, here is number 20, the first album by a group called the MerryGoRound, infamous for having Emmett Rhodes in the band. This is his first album with the MerryGoRound. Has the hit single Live, which the Bangles covered on their first album. Also, Your Very Lovely Woman. Has Had to Run Around. One of my favorites on this record is called On Your Way Out. Really great, kind of folky tune. Great album from 67, the MerryGoRound. Number 19 is Between the Buttons from the Stones. This is the American version. I actually like the British version better because it has Backstreet Girl and Please Don't Go Home. But it's a great album. My favorite song here, Something Happened to Me Yesterday, is probably my favorite. Also love Yesterday's Papers and Connection. Fine album. It kind of catches the Stones at a crossroads there before they hit big time into psychedelia. So number 19 is Between the Buttons from the Rolling Stones. Number 18 is the second album from Jefferson Airplane, Surrealistic Pillow. My favorite song on here is a song called DCBA 25. I love that tune. It has kind of a Birds vibe. But the whole album, let's face it, it's a classic. Today is a great song. Of course, the hit Somebody to Love, White Rabbit. I also love My Best Friend, which I think is a Marty Balin title. So this comes in at number 18, Surrealistic Pillow, Jefferson Airplane. Number 17 is the second album from Tim Hardin, Tim Hardin 2. This is such a great album. I picked this up maybe about 10 years ago. I've had his first album for years. This one's even better. It has If I Were a Carpenter, Red Balloon, probably the most popular songs. There's a song on here, though, called Speak Like a Child on side 2 that is so good. But the whole album is so good. It has a nice flow to it. And, you know, it's a shame that he was so addicted because he was such a great songwriter. He didn't put out a whole ton of stuff. His whole life was pretty much addiction. But what a fantastic writer. Of course, he did Reason to Believe, which Rod Stewart later covered on Every Picture Tells a Story. But a fine writer, Tim Hardin 2. If you have never heard this, please pick it up. It's fantastic. Number 16 is the second album from Cream, Disraeli Gears. This is definitely my favorite Cream album. A little more pop-oriented, more song-oriented than the first album. The first album had a lot of covers on it. Didn't like the production on Fresh Cream too much. Very tinty sounding, very trebly. And the stereo version of it, I think, is just terrible of Fresh Cream. But this here, the production is great. Every song is fantastic. I love She Walks Like a Bearded Rainbow. Second song on side 2. Every song has its own merit. You know, We're Going Wrong, Dance the Night Away. Of course, the hits, Strange Brew, Sunshine of Your Love, Tales of Brave Ulysses. And then, of course, the comedy closer on side 2, Mother's Lament with Ginger Baker. Great album here from Cream. Disraeli Gears at number 16. Number 15 is probably my third favorite Bob Dylan album of all time, John Wesley Harding. This is probably my third favorite after Highway 61 and Blonde on Blonde. Again, has a great flow, very mellow. It's really just like bass, drums, and acoustic guitar throughout. A little bit of piano on Dear Landlord. I love the song As I Went Out This Morning, and I love I'll Be Your Baby Tonight. My band has covered that tune several times. Great song. This could be maybe the end of Dylan's like just really prolific phase in the 60s, but still a great album. Love it. Number 15, John Wesley Harding from 67. Okay, let's see. Number 14 is The Who's Sellout, which is definitely my favorite Who album of all time. Just amazing songs on side one with the commercials and everything. Side two is great as well. What's that song called? I Can't Reach You. I love that song. I love Rail, the way it ends the album. And there's hints of Sparks from Tommy on that. He really used that Sparks melody quite a few times between this album and Tommy. But a really flawless album from start to finish. I Can See for Miles is on here. Tattoo. And just countless great songs. So that comes at number 14, The Who Sell Out. Number 13 is Aretha Franklin's I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You, one of my favorites of hers. Of course, the hit Respect. I love the title track, Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. Also Dr. Feelgood, Do Right, Do Woman, Do Right Woman, Do Right Man. Every song is fantastic, a soul classic. Where are we at here? 12. The first album, The Small Faces, released for the Immediate label. There are but 4 Small Faces. I think the British version was just called Small Faces, but this is a great showcase for Steve Marriott's amazing vocals. Of course, it has Itchycoo Park on it. Talk to You is great. I'm Only Dreaming, My Way of Giving, which Rod Stewart later covered on Gasoline Alley. Awesome song. Probably one of my absolute favorite Small Faces songs and songs in general of all time. Tin Soldier just rocks. And Here Comes the Nice, great pop song. Just an amazing album. The Small Faces just don't get enough credit. And Steve Marriott, I think, is one of the great white soul blues singers ever. So that comes in at number 12, I believe. Number 10 is the Mr. Fantasy record by Traffic. Great psychedelic record. This, to me, is the definitive version of this album. It also had an alternate title, I think, when they re-released this in America, Heaven is in Your Mind. But the track listing on this, to me, is way better than the British version. Starts off with Paper Sun, Into Dealer, Colored Rain, Hole in My Shoe by Dave Mason. There's just so many great songs on here. Heaven is in Your Mind. Some great psychedelic stuff on side 2, Smiling Faces. An album that I play more and more as the years go by. It just puts me in a really nice frame of mind. Traffic, Mr. Fantasy. Number 10 is my favorite Beatles album from '67. No, it's not Sgt. Pepper. It's Magical Mystery Tour. And even though it's not a real album, it really plays like a real album. I think song for song, it's better than Sgt. Pepper. I know Sgt. Pepper has the whole cultural thing, and it is a phenomenal album. Not knocking it, but Magical Mystery Tour just has so many great songs. I think one of the best Beatles songs ever, Strawberry Fields, I Am the Walrus. The title track is amazing. The whole second side plays like a greatest hits of '67. So this comes in at number 10 for me, Magical Mystery Tour, The Beatles. Number 9 is Leonard Cohen's incredible debut album. Every song is amazing. Let me just run down a few of these amazing songs. Of course, it starts off with, here's an original press, by the way, on the Columbia Records. Of course, Suzanne. Sisters of Mercy is one of my favorite songs of his. One of Us Cannot Be Wrong, which ends the album, which I listed on another video, is one of probably my favorite Leonard Cohen song. So Long, Marianne. On and on and on, and a great, great album. Songs of Leonard Cohen. I think this album and I'm the Man or I'm Your Man are my favorite Leonard Cohen albums of all time. Just flawless stuff here. Great debut. Next is Something Else by the Kinks. The first perfect Kinks album, in my opinion. Every great song from this period. David Watts, Death of a Clown, Two Sisters, No Return. Love Me Till the Sun Shines, one of Dave's best songs. Of course, ending with the beautiful Waterloo Sunset. Something Else. Next is Love's Forever Changes. This one ranks high on a lot of people's lists. I love it as well. Alone Again is fantastic, also covered by The Damned back in the early 80s. I love The Daily Planet, You Set the Scene. I mean, hell, the whole album is fantastic, right? But I actually like De Capo better than this album, if you can believe it. I love side 1 of De Capo, and I think it's as good as this album. So anyway, a great album. Love Forever Changes. And I'm a huge Love fan. I like everything they did. So there you go. Next one is the first Bowie Grape album, which to me is probably the greatest album of the San Francisco scene. Maybe not as popular as Jefferson Airplane and Grateful Dead, but it's a flawless album. I think it comes in just under 30 minutes. Every song's amazing. This comes with the original cover with Don Stevenson giving the middle finger. It was later airbrushed. But they still haven't re-released this on CD. I think it has to do with the original owner of the master tapes or something, but this is definitely in need of a re-release. There was a double album or double CD of all their greatest songs from this album and the second and the third album released in '93, and that's been the only time I think these songs have been remastered, but they've never re-released this as a fresh copy. So anyway, great album. Every song is fantastic, from Hey Grandma to Indifference. Fantastic. Next, of course, is the first Velvet Underground album, and Nico, an album I've been playing for 40 years plus. Of course, it's been discussed to death, so I won't go into it. But probably my favorite songs on here are more the ballads, Femme Fatale, I'll Be Your Mirror. Of course, I love the experimental stuff like Heroin and Venus and Furs. The only song I really don't like is the last track, European Sun. It just goes on a little too long, in my opinion. But fantastic record, obviously very influential over the years, and still is. And it's weird, I looked on acclaimed music, and it's, I think, the top 3 acclaimed albums of all time, which is mind-blowing, considering this album never sold much upon release. So anyway, and now we're down to the remaining 4. Number 4 is Buffalo Springfield's second album, Again. Probably one of the greatest albums of the era. Wide variety of songs on here. Mr. Soul and Expecting to Fly and Broken Arrow by Neil. Every Days and Hung Upside Down. Rock and Roll Woman by Stephen Stills. Richie Furay gets a little action in here with A Child's Claim to Fame and Sad Memory. It's just a perfect, eclectic album. And I think after this, they pretty much were broken up. And the third album last time around came out. It was kind of a hodgepodge, but a great hodgepodge of material. So this comes in at number 4, Buffalo Springfield Again. Number 3 is an album that doesn't get much love. They're only thought of as a one-hit wonder. They're far from that. This is the debut from Procol Harum, self-titled album. Of course, Wider Shade of Pale is on here, but everything on here is amazing. This has the debut of Robin Trower. Also has the amazing drumming of B.J. Wilson. And I hold this up as a tribute to Keith Reed, who recently passed away, as well as Gary Brooker a year ago. They were quite a songwriting team. I guess Elton John and Bernie Taupin got a lot of influence from them as songwriters, as Bernie Taupin was just a lyricist, just as Keith Reed was. But highly, highly recommended album. One of the best debuts of all time. Underrated. Of course, Conquistadors on here, which was later a hit off the Live at the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra album. Kaleidoscope, Salad Days, Repent While Purges. Great showcase for Matthew Fisher's organ. Mabel kind of sounds like a Lovin' Spoonful kind of tune. Surdays, Outside the Gates of, had some great Trower playing. Kind of that Hendrix low tone playing. Just a great album. One of my favorites. Procol Harum's debut. Number 2 is an album I've showcased several times, but why not again? It's top 20, 1967, right? My favorite Doors album, Strange Days. This album has a vibe like no other. Sounds like a carnival at night. It reminds me of going to the beach at night. Everything is great on here. I love Your Lost Little Girl. All of it's great. There's no need to go into it, but side 2 is my favorite Doors side. People Are Strange. My Eyes Have Seen You, I Can't See Your Face in My Mind, and of course the epic When the Music's Over. And then number 1, maybe come as a surprise or no surprise, but it has to be Are You Experienced? Come on, one of the greatest debuts of all time. Just futuristic playing from Hendrix. The songwriting too, I don't think Hendrix gets enough credit for his songwriting prowess. It's amazing on this album. I also love Axis Bold as Love. I was going to feature this in the top 20, but I'm only featuring one album per band. But I think Axis Bold as Love is just as great as this album, but I had to include this as number 1 because it's so phenomenal. Are You Experience is one of the greatest psychedelic songs ever. Of course, great ballads like The Wind Cries Mary. I love May This Be Love. It's just such a great album. Never get tired of it. So that's it. Those are my top 20 in 1967. What are your top 20 from 67? There's plenty to choose from. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Please subscribe if you haven't. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.